my father, for some time, you know, in Israel, in Jerusalem, one of the first things that were established was in the university was the faculty of law, because it was established by the British Mandatory Authority, and it came before the establishment of the other, apparently, or accreditation of the university. And my father at one stage taught in it, in this faculty of law, and one of the students that were studying in that faculty of law later became known as Arnold Speer, who became a known lawyer in Israel, and he was one of the people that my father then got to know afterwards, and I used him, Arnold Speer, to defend me in many of the exploits of the Israeli what's it with me. So he sort of was used, I used him. And then finally, when just before he passed away, one day I receive a file from him, and I open it. It's a letter, and he says, you know, I'm moving house, I'm moving to a smaller house, and I saw, as I was looking in the house, my lecture notes from your father's lectures, and I don't know what to do with them, so here they are if you want them. So I got that from him, from the lecture notes of my father from before 48.
So how was that, I mean, with your family? I mean, first of all, even living in Jerusalem, in Israel between 48 and 67, there were Arab Israelis. So that was not exactly the same situation as on the other side, but particularly in your family, you had quite strong memories, family memories about being together or about the relationship with Arabs.
First, I want to refer to what Sari said at his mother's family. They said they couldn't stand the Jews, or whatever was the reason. I'm a little bit upset with you, Sari. Okay,
I'm glad.
No, I'll tell you why. Because at home we used to say that only a Jew is allowed to be an anti-Semite because he knows why. Okay, now all of a sudden this knowledge is the property of the entire world. I mean, what went wrong here? But nonetheless, I have a kind of a little bit of a different experience here, and I'll take a personal story first, and then I'll try to answer the collective, the comprehension to the collective. From my father's side, my father was born in Dresden. Till the last day of his life, he was so upset that he was only an Ostjude rather than an Echtejeke. But nonetheless, he was a first-generation immigrant to the country. From my mother's side, we were there for hundreds of years. I mean, she was on a, 7 or 8 generation of Jews born in Hebron. My grandfather was the rabbi of the city, and they rented an apartment from an Arab landlord. And the years were early 20s, and this landlord was quite an old man. He was in his 60s or mid-60s. And at his old age, he went to Turkey and bought, this is what it was said, bought a new wife. And according to the Hebron aesthetics, she was a beautiful woman. She was, as described in Hebron, and this is the Hebron criterions for beauty. She was bad, was samina, yani, she was white and fat. These were the criterions of beauty at the time. I don't know whether it's changed today, okay?
It was the same.
The same? I didn't visit the place recently from this point of view. And at his old age, she gave him 2 sons, Yasser and Shaker and Yasser, and therefore they were called Shaker and Yasser, and Abu Shaker or Abu Shaker. At a certain age, the kid was sick, Shaker was sick, and the doctors gave up on his life. That was before penicillin. Healthcare by Obamacare was not yet established in Hebron, so there was no health security, and the doctors gave up on his life. My father, the rabbi, was sitting next to his bed all night long and was praying and was begging, and a miracle happened. Since the Israelites, the children of Israel, left Egypt at the exodus of something like 1200 years BC, for the first time ever since, God listened to a rabbi. And in the morning, the kid recovered and he was okay. Shaker and Abu Shaker never forgot this. We fast forward into August 29. The country, the whole country, is very tensed between Israelis and Palestinians, and I will say the impotence of the British mandate to control the tension. It is political, it is national, it is religious, it is personal, it is economic. It's an it's the first serious eruption. This is a year, this is a weekend, this is the couple of months in which more than 300 people in a very small two communities, 300 people were killed, Jews and Palestinians alike, by each other. But Hebron was the jewel of the crown vis-a-vis this tension. And in this very Shabbat, the tension in the city was very, very intense. And the Jewish street was divided between two houses. Half the street went to my uncle's place. He was a young, prominent person. He was a member of the municipality. He had a license, a British license to have a handgun. He was the director general of the local bank. They said he's a respected person. The mobsters will not dare to touch him. Half the street went there, and half the street went the Jewish way. They went to the rabbi. If worse come to worse, go to the rabbi. To make a long story longer, by the end of the day, out of the 63 or 67 of people who were brutally, Jews who were brutally slaughtered by the local Palestinian Hebronite mobsters, 23 or 24 were killed at my uncle's place. All of those who went there, but a cousin of mine who was 2 years older was buried under the bodies, and they didn't see him. All of those who went to my grandfather's place, my mom included, were saved. When the mobsters started to chant in the street, Ed Bahel Yahud, slaughter the Jews, and I'm sorry for this, Sari, but Palestine lana wal Yahud kilabna, yani Palestine is ours and the Jews are our dogs. Shaker took this little boy and told him, run to the vineyards. It was the high season of the vineyard, in which the farmers do not come back the whole day long because they have to work, sometimes sleep even outside of the vineyard. And he said, run to the vineyard and hurry up, bring your father back home. He ran to the vineyard. The father, Abu Shaker, came back home. He was 70 years old. She put him at the doorstep. He said, you are the gatekeeper. You don't let anybody touch my Jews. And he was standing there. My mom and her sisters and her father were frightened to death within the place. The mobsters attacked him, almost amputated his leg, stabbed him. And he said, stab as much as you want. I don't move. That's a holy family. That's my family. That's the family of the rabbi. And by the end of the day, this righteous among the nation, a Palestinian, saved my life, saved my mom's life, and therefore gave me life. And ever since, my family is equally divided between those who will never in their lifetime trust any Arab, forget about Palestinian, and those like myself and like my children and my sister and my nephews who will always look for the individual out there to restart the whole story. What I try to draw out of it is actually two things. The first one is very political structured, and the other one is a very political psychological. The political structure is, I do not believe anymore, I'm not sure I ever believed, but for sure now, that the division lines are all of us versus all of them. It is not there, not for me, not for my family, not for my friends. You cannot find any miracle in the world in which will make Sari and myself enemies. We can be rivals, we can be partners, we can like each other, we can dislike each other. We shall never be enemies. But I can tell you, that's for him. I can tell you that some of my family, cousins and uncles and nephews, are my worst enemies. And if there will be one day a bloodshed within my Jewish community, over church and state, or over the occupied territories, we might find ourselves on the two opposite sides of the barricades. And therefore, for me, the partition lines between the Jordan and the Mediterranean is not the automatic clan, tribal, artificial solidarity that all of us versus all of them. It is some of us Jews and some of them Muslims and some of them Christians together with us versus some of us extreme Jews and some of them fundamentalist Christians and some of them zealot Muslims. So this is a different partition line. It's a line of a coalition between human beings sharing the same human values, though coming from different departure point. We would like to arrive ourselves and for our children for a better reality. And our enemies and adversaries are sometimes coming from within. So this is to do about the attitude to the other. The collective Israel suffers from a very rare psychological disease of a kind of a split personality. And I'll show you in a second how it works. Take Israel of between 48 lines and the Mediterranean. We won the war. Whatever reason, whatever happened, within 48 lines, we did our utmost quite impressively and quite successfully to erase and to eradicate and to forget any previous Palestinian history. Yes, we have some confinement, some ghettos of Palestinian Israeli Arab villages. I mean, al-Fahim is 10 times larger than Hohenems. But it's a village, small one, like a kleine Dorf. It's a huge place, but we ignore them. We do not see them. They are transparent. Previous places were erased, named were renamed, roads were repaved, infrastructures were removed and restructured. And we did a magnificent job to erase any previous presence of Wadi Khanin, of Nes Ziona, or Ramle, or whatever it is. And it works. We don't have them. Every now and then they do some problems, but it's okay. Then came 67, the same infamous 67, and Israel automatically overnight expanded to the West Bank, ever since refuses to relinquish its absolute grip over the West Bank, which is a permanent reminder of the previous existence and the previous history. So within 48, one hemisphere of my psyche is working on forgetting the Palestinian history, and the other hemisphere, which grabs his existence and hugs him and do not want to let him off to be an independent entity, is Sari Nusseibeh is the permanent reminder of the Israelis of the previous histories. And we have these two conflicting hemispheres, forgetting and remembering, remembering and forgetting, and we have no clue where we are. So no wonder we're a dizzy country.
You were fighting, I mean, not with guns, but with words and with negotiations and teaming up with good-willing people on both sides, again and again, for a partition solution. And then you wrote a book that, in an essence, says, let's forget about that. Let them occupy us. Let them even introduce a not equality of law, or of statehood, I mean of citizenship. Let them do all this, but let's start from scratch on one territory with one kind of whatever state. What was the point, the turning point for you? I mean, what kind of experience? Was there any moment when you realized that you were, I mean, chasing a chimera, or was it a long process of disillusion? I mean, how was your way from that one, I mean, peace-fighting, intellectual, negotiating, partition man to a radical other vision?
Well, I started out being, actually I started out wanting one state. As I was a student, growing up, what I wanted, what I was really gripped by as an idea was a state, a single state for Jews and Arabs. You know, I had this dream in my head of one, I didn't really know exactly what it meant, but you know, I was thinking that we should have one democratic secular state. I was very influenced by some of the leaders, in particular in the PLO, in the Fatah mainstream, so to speak, who were talking in those terms early on. And so much so that when the idea of two states when I first came across it, I was a student and I saw an article that